Good morning, students. Hope you are doing fine at home. So here we are again to learn something new. So today we will see the next chapter, which is why democracy. Okay. So what is democracy? Democracy is the most popular form of government in the present day world. All right. It is almost all countries in the world. This setup has been adopted. Democracy has been derived from the Greek word demos, which means people, and kratia, which means administration. So two words from the Greek, okay, demos and kratia. So when these two words come into the English form, they become democracy, which means people, administration. It means administration of the people. Thus, democracy is form of government where the administration is in the hands of the people of that country. So India is also a democratic country. All right. Now we'll quickly try and understand the actual definition of democracy. Okay. Various definitions of democracy have been given by the scholars. The Greek philosopher Herodotus said, democracy is that form of government in which the supreme power of the state is vested in the members of the community as a whole. According to Seeley, Seeley is another scholar, democracy is a government in which everyone has a share. However, Abraham Lincoln, the American president, has given the best definition of democracy. He says, democracy is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Okay, so the definition is very much simple, which is given by Abraham Lincoln, the President of America. He said democracy is a government formed by the people, of the people. Okay. Moving ahead, we need to understand the emergency of democracy in modern societies. Why it came up. Okay. Democracy originated in the Greek city of Athens. It was practiced 2500 years ago. Male citizens of Athens gathered together about 40 times a year. This was the People's Assembly. It was a direct democracy. All citizens except women, slaves, and foreign regularly played a part in decision making. So women, slaves, and foreigners, right, they were not involved into such discussions for democracy in Athens. Though direct democracy is the real form of democracy, but these days it is not practicable in big states with big areas and big population. Nowadays, in most of the countries, including India, we find indirect democracy. Indirect democracy is also known as representative democracy. Okay. Now, this particular form of democracy in which the citizens do not participate in the administration directly, but through their representatives, they take part. Okay. They elect their representatives who make laws and run government on behalf of the people. So in India, we can see a good example of indirect democracy wherein a large number of people, large crowd, they select a representative. So you must have seen how the voting campaigns happen in India. Okay. So they select a particular representative for democracy. Now that person goes and works on behalf of the people. The emergency of modern democracy is linked with Europe. The glorious Revolution of England in the 17th century and the French Revolution in the 18th century greatly contributed to this development. The Glorious Revolution laid the foundation of the first democratic principle of the rule of law. Okay, so there were two major revolutions that took place in the 17th and the 18th century. So in the 17th century, the Glorious Revolution of England, and in the 18th, century, the French Revolution. These revolutions laid the foundation of the first democratic principle of the rule of law. Now, what is the rule of law? In democracy, law is supreme and all people and officers, big or small, have to act according to the law. All are subject to law and equal laws are applicable to all equally. No man is considered above law. Anybody who breaks the law is liable to be punished, and nobody can be punished if he has not broken the law. Prior to the Glorious Revolution, it was believed that the king's wish were the rule of the law. Prior to the Glorious Revolution, whatever the king said, whatever the king made a wish, that was considered to be the rule of law. The people protected against this principle, and by dethroning their king, King James II, in 1688 AD, and by passing the Bill of Rights, they established the idea that the country should be ruled by laws, okay, passed by the parliament. So what happened? They dethroned their king. Which king? The name of the king was King James II. In 1688 AD, they passed a bill through parliament saying that the country should be ruled by laws and not mere kings. A century late, through the revolution of the French, the people of France executed their king, King Louis, and established the rule of law. During the 18th century in France, the people overthrew their king, King Louis XVI, okay, because he was not a good king, and they established the rule of law, okay. In fact, the rule of law was the first important step towards the establishment of a democratic government, okay. These great revolutions strengthened the roots of democracy by giving the idea of accountability and responsibility, which meant that government must be responsible of the electorate, that is, the people who had the right to vote. But initially, the right of vote was given to limited number of wealthy and powerful people, which meant that democratic government was not perfect. So initially, in the start, when people started establishing the rule of law, they gave only a few handful of people the right to vote, okay, right to elect only to some people who were having lot of money, who were having a very high standard or a high power in the society. But then this particular thing was not right. This meant that the democratic government was not perfect, because only high class one involved, people who had lot of power and lot of wealth, okay. So the middleman and the poor, they were not present in it. The middle and the poor classes had no representation in it. After a long struggle, the right to vote, also called franchise or suffrage, was gradually extended to all. Now again, they took a struggle by the common people to get the right to vote, okay. Now when they got the right to vote, this is also called as franchise or suffrage. Suffrage means the right to vote, okay. Slowly and steadily, the common man also started casting his vote, but still the women did not enjoy this right, okay. The struggle for women's suffrage continued, and ultimately they too got the right to vote. The right to vote given to every adult in a country is called the universal adult franchise. So slowly and steadily, in steps, first some people got it, some people who were a part of the high society, then the middleman, poor classes struggled, and only among them men got the chances to vote, and then the women were left out. After a long struggle for women, slowly and steadily women were also allowed to cast their vote, okay. During the 19th and the 20th century, the idea of democracy further developed into new directions. It was felt that right to equality established in democracy should not be restricted to political field. it should be extended to the economic and social spheres also. Thus, democracy involved the following 4 steps. Now, the 4 steps that were involved, first is already initially the rule of law. Second is principle of accountability and responsibility. Third, adult franchise. Fourth, political equality extended to economic equality. So this is how there was a slight change in the democratic rules when they came up in the 19th and 20th century. Moving ahead, we'll now see different systems of power existing in the world. Okay. This is the age of democracy, but even today in many states we find non-democratic governments in existence. In a non-democratic government, also called as dictatorship, the basis of authority is not public opinion, but it is the force. So what does dictatorship mean? Dictatorship means there's only one force which is commanding over the whole country, whole people of that country. Okay, no one else is allowed to make or take any decisions. So the authority works by force and not by public opinion. The citizen is not given the right and freedom to participate in the working of the government. People cannot participate in the decision making and law making, and the rulers rule account to their own free will. So the rulers make their own law. They do not consider the common public in making or deciding the law. A dictatorship can be of army, which is military power, or that of a political party. It is called despotic government. Clear? So dictatorship, has to do more with forced rules. A few people make those rules, right, and they implement it by force on the people of that country. Another form of government in the country is the word called monarchy. Okay, monarchy. It could be constitutional monarchy, in which the powers of the monarchs are defined by constitution. Example, the United Kingdom. You need to understand the word monarch. Monarch means king. Okay. So the king's rule applies. For example, the United Kingdom, the king rules applies over there. On the other hand, it is absolute monarchy. There is hereditary system of government where the ruling family, that is the monarch, has total control over a state. Theocracy is a religious system of government where religious leaders hold power. Members of the majority religion make up the government. Civil laws are made to conform to the religious teachings of the majority religion. Recently, some countries have combined the elements of theocracy and democracy. Okay, so understand what is theocracy. Theocracy has got to do more with the religious system of a government. So when you have religious people, the people who hold high amount of religious knowledge, and then they lead, the government with their religious principles. So this kind of government is called the theocracy. Okay. Moving ahead, we will now study the different forms of democratic government. Okay. So the two basic forms of democratic government are parliamentary and presidential form of governments. Okay. On the basis of the relationship between the executive and legislature, the democratic government can be of two kinds: parliamentary government and presidential government. Parliamentary form of government is also called cabinet government. In this form of government, in which the executive is responsible to the parliament for its work and exercise of authority, and the ministers. This form of government had its origin and development in England, and these days it is available in most of the countries including India. So India has a parliamentary form of government. So you heard about the parliament, right? The parliament house at Delhi. Now where has this system, the parliamentary form of government, come? It has come from England. Why England? Because the Britishers ruled India and then they showed us this particular model of running a government. Since this was already developed in England, this got implemented in many other countries including India. Okay. Now next is the presidential form of government. Okay. As opposed to the parliamentary form of government, it is that government in which the executive and legislature have no close relations. The executive is not appointed from the members of this legislature and is not responsible to the legislature. In this system, the head of the state enjoys all powers given to him and his ministers are his advisors. In this system, the chief of the state is not merely titular executive, but he is real executive and actually exercises the powers which the constitution and laws confer upon him. Presidential form of government had its origin and development in America. So who is the president of America right now? Have you heard the name? Donald Trump. So he is the president of US. Okay. So the president has all the powers. A democratic government can also be unitary or federal. Up to the 18th century, all the government used to be unitary. Okay, so a democratic government can be unitary or a federal. Now we'll see what are unitary and federal. Okay, the first federal government was established in USA when 13 independent states formed a union and gave birth to a new state. When all the powers are legally enjoyed by the central government and the provincial government are completely under the central government. This system is called unitary government. Okay, so when the central government controls all the other provincial governments, it is called the unitary government. When the powers are divided between the center and the state and both work independent of each other, one cannot interfere in the working of the other. It is called a federal government. India has adopted federal structure, but it has elements of unitary government also to face emergency. So what is the methodology or the system that we follow in India? India follows the federal structure. However, in case of emergency, the central government has the power to exercise its power during emergency. So they are also taken as some elements from the unitary form of government. There is another form of democracy such as the Soviet democracy, in which workers elect representative in the organs of power called Soviet. Soviet means councils. Soviets represents the democratic will of the working class. Now we'll quickly see what are the chief features, what are the main features of the unitary government, and then we'll also see what are the chief features of a federal government. Alright, so we'll start with the chief features of the unitary government. Number one, concentration of power. In a unitary government, all powers are concentrated in the central government. Okay, so in unitary government, all the powers are concentrated, all the powers are with the central government. Provincial government enjoys only those powers and authorities which are given to them by the government from the center. So whatever the central government gives to the provincial government, they enjoy and exercise only those powers. These powers can be curtailed and withdrawn by the central government at its will. Okay, so the central government can go ahead and take off the power of the other provincial governments if it wishes. Okay, then comes single administration. There is a single administration. Provinces and local bodies do not have a separate legislature. There is only one set of government servants who are under the central government and they carry out the administration throughout the state. there is a single judiciary for the whole country. Then comes single citizenship. People are given single citizenship. A man is the citizen of the whole state. The provinces are not empowered to confer their separate citizenship on the residents in that area. Okay, so a man is just given one citizenship, means he is the citizen of the whole country and not just his own area. Fourth, nature of the constitution. The nature of the constitution can be rigid or flexible, written or unwritten. There is no need of a written or a rigid constitution. So these were the features of the unitary government. Now we'll see the chief features of the federal government, right? So to start with, it's the first one, distribution of power. Distribution of powers between the central government and the state is an essential feature of a federal government. So what's the essential feature? Distribution of powers between the center government and the state government. Powers are distributed in the constitution. So different powers are given to the center and different set of powers is given to the state according to the constitution. Powers of national importance are given to the central government, while those relating to the regional or local importance are given to the state. Both exercise their respective powers independently. Okay. Second, written and rigid constitution. In a federal government, there has to be a written and rigid constitution. If the constitution is not written, disputes arise between the center and the states regarding their powers and jurisdiction. So there has to be a written constitution, a set of rules. So in a federal government, so there has to be rules laid down, and then they have to be written also, so that no confusion comes up between the center and state when they are doing their duties. The constitution should be rigid so that no one may amend it for its own benefit. Third, supremacy of constitution. The constitution is the supreme law of the state and no authority is allowed to act contrary to the constitution. So the constitution, this set of rules are very important and they are supreme for every country. Okay, and no one can change them so easily. Fourth, independent judiciary. In a federation, there is an independent, impartial and powerful judiciary. Okay, this organ is given superiority over the other two organs of government. The judiciary is independent, not under the influence of the central government. It is vested with the power of judicial review. Okay, so the judiciary, the judicial law, okay, is a separate branch and it is independent. It does not act as per the central government. Fifth, bicameral legislature. All over the world, there are two chambers of parliament. Chambers of parliament means two different sets. Okay, even in England, where there is unitary government, there are two chambers. In a federal government, two chambers are essential. The lower house represents the people, while the upper house is represented by the units. Okay. Sixth, dual citizenship. In federal government, there is no provision. Dual citizenship. In federal government, there is a provision of dual citizenship, but it is not essential. In USA, dual citizenship is available, but in India, there is no provision of dual citizenship. Okay, so dual citizenship normally comes in the federal form of government. So there is a provision, there is a separate set of rules for dual citizenship, but it is not compulsory. So the US has dual citizenship laws, however India does not have any such provision for dual citizenship. Moving ahead with the lesson, we will now see the significant elements that make democracy very popular in the contemporary world. Right? Significant means important elements. Okay, important elements. What are the important elements? You can see it on the board right now. We'll discuss one by one. Okay, so the first is formal equality. Equality is a pillar of democracy. Okay, is the main base for a democracy. No other form of government gives importance to the principle of equality of men. Nature has made all men equal, and this is the base of democracy. No discrimination is made on the basis of caste, color, creed, or birth. Only merit is given importance. All are equal in the eyes of law, and the same law applies to all the people. All are given equal opportunity to hold public offices, and nobody is given special treatment or nobody is above law. Okay, formal equality, everyone is treated equally, right? No special treatment for anyone. Okay, next, second, liberty, which is freedom. Also, liberty is another pillar of democracy. Without liberty, man cannot make his fullest development. Freedom of thought and expression, freedom to form association and criticize the government, and freedom of press are enjoyed by the citizens only in democracy, and these freedoms are essential for self-expression and development. So the freedom of thought and expression, thought, thinking, and expression to explain, you can express it. Okay, this particular freedom is very important. This particular liberty is very important, without which man cannot get the essentials for self-expression and development done for him. Okay, he needs to express. Third, popular participation. Popular participation is the foundation of democratic setup. In the absence of it, democracy can neither be real or fruitful. Population participation means participation of the people in the running government. In the activities of the state, adult franchise is the most popular form of popular participation. So voting, when you see mass voting happening, so it's a very popular form of participation wherein a lot of people take part in this activity of the government. When people are given the rights and opportunities to actively participate in the government activities at all levels without any distinction or discrimination, it is popular participation. Adult franchise is the most popular form of participation. But popular participation is not confined to adult franchise or even to the exercise of franchise by the people. So it is not limited. Okay. Fourth, decision making mechanism. In a democracy, there is a definite decision making system which is in the hands of people. The people elect their representative who form the legislature or parliament, which passes various bills and makes laws according to which the government is governed, right? So there is a decision making mechanism. No one can go ahead and take any decision whatever they want. So people have a particular procedure to follow, and then only they can make certain decisions in the legislature. Okay. The majority party or parties in the parliament form the government. If any government fails to serve the people, it can be changed in the next election. Okay. Fifth, accommodation of differences. In a democracy, nothing can be imposed on people. Okay. You cannot simply take a decision and then imply or impose it on the people. The elected representatives of the people can express their differences freely. They can express whatever they feel. Okay. The opposition parties in the legislature which oppose or expose the government at every point. Thus, the spirit of give and take and the spirit of accommodation makes democracy popular in the modern world. So you can share your views over any of the decisions taken by the government, and that too freely. You can express it freely. Democracy is based on tolerance and accommodation. Otherwise, it is likely to become a majority dictatorship. Differences between the ruling party and the oppositions are settled amicably. That is why democracy has become very popular in the modern world. Alright. Sixth, enhancing human dignity. human respect. Okay, enhancing means how to improve it. It is only in democracy that liberty, equality and fraternity can be ensured. In a democracy, not only political liberty is ensured, but all efforts are made to ensure economic liberty as well. Similarly, in our country, equality in all spheres, that is civil, social, political and economic, has been assured to all the citizens. While social equality has been established by banning untouchability, economic equality is assured by people by banning all kinds of exploitation of weaker section of the society by the stronger ones. Steps have been taken by the Indian government for the welfare of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and other backward classes. Adequate arrangements have been made for the representation in Lok Sabha and state assemblies through popular laws. Reservation in services, education, etc. has been made for such castes and tribes so as to enhance their social status and dignity. Alright, so this last point gives us a quick idea that Indian government has taken the necessary steps. The Indian constitution has the necessary rules of enhancing human dignity. Okay, hope you understood this lesson. Have a great time. Thank you.